Welcome to this month's installment of Wonder Women, stories from the women who play bass. I've got Ariane Cap on the line. How you doing, girl?
Brittany, it's great to see you. I'm doing great. It's awesome to see you.
It's great to see you. That's great to see you. Thank you so much for doing this. I know you're like busy as all get out. You're super respected. You're super productive. So thanks for being here.
You bet. It's my joy. I love No Treble. I love what you have been starting here. So I've been reading and watching and it's very excited to be on. So thank you.
Oh, thanks. So we're gonna do the questions. And run down it. So what I usually start with for everybody, and because you don't know who's new learning about these people for the first time, and I know there's people who followed you for a while, they're going to know how to answer this question. They could practically answer it for you, but this is for anybody who may not know. Tell us about yourself. Like, short bio.
Short bio. I was born and raised in Little Innsbruck, Austria, very romantic, cute little town. And fast forward, several decades later, find myself being a full-time musician, performer, bass player, as well as author and educator in Nashville by way of Florida, California, and now recently Nashville. So what got me here was a little detour to a science education. In my family, we're all scientists, and so I kind of wanted to follow that route, but music kept pulling me back in. I've been playing piano since I was very little. My mom was super patient with me, practicing with me every day. I had a bigger brother who was playing pretty well, and I went to the piano, was kind of tinkering and picking out some things he was playing. And, my classical education back then, it was all about learning to read. It always was all about staying within the lines. Don't do anything that's not written. They put this weird contraption over my head that was like tucked under the book, and you had to read and weren't allowed to see your fingers, so that you are forced to read. And, it was quite interesting, but influenced me a lot as a teacher, the good and the bad, because we learned really well technique right from the start. That was a good learning. But this not allowing for creativity and this like kind of forcing you to not make beautiful sounding music until you have checkmarked certain milestones, that was a little rough. But I learned a lot from it, I gotta say. And, it was deeply steeped in classical music, in science and what have you. When I was 18, I skipped town for a year. I went to Harvard Square and was hanging out with the musicians there. And because I had such a strong background in theory and in, how music's put together, I was jamming with these guys, guitar, and picked up all sorts of instruments and was trying things. And I really got hooked on, jazz, pop, rock. I had some catching up to do. So I didn't grow up with this stuff at all. But I decided at that time I want to play in a band. And so I started tinkering in bands. I did my science education, came back to Austria. Long story short, as soon as I had my degree, I walked straight back into the university. I'm like, where's the music department? I want to do that for real. Also went to a private bass school in Munich during that time. And I just really wanted to do this for real. And then met my current husband. He used to be my teacher. And then I wanted private lessons, if you get my idea. And we hooked up, and we did a lot of music together and became a couple. And that's been the start of a beautiful personal as well as professional relationship, because we still write books together. We just released my second book, his first as a collaboration with me, and even though he was involved in the first one as well. But it's been an amazing journey. And I've always been somebody who really loves performing, but I also love teaching. So I can't tell you whether I'm a teacher who loves performing or a performer who loves teaching. I'm really both. I've always been super interested in like learning psychology and how people figure things out. And I was fascinated by having students who, would have a similar background like me. Like it's all about reading the paper. But if you take the paper away and improvise, how do you bridge that gap versus meeting people who had the completely different approach, everything done by ear? Couldn't analyze it really, just had a really intuitive approach. And I just saw a lot of possibility in bringing these two approaches together, because I could see how each approach benefits the other. And so I was really paying attention to those kind of things, was really interested in, in teaching and learning psychology and that sort of thing. And, playing in bands. I've played in several very eclectic projects, from, the Mozart band back in Austria that fused Mozart's music with funk and rock, and, big spectacle, and to playing punk rock with the Sippy Cups, and to playing with Cirque du Soleil, to playing with Muriel Anderson and Tierra Negra, to playing with Tempest. I toured with them for 3 years. That was super fun, Celtic rock. So I've done lots of different styles, lots of cover bands, lots of weddings, So I've been around the block as a performer as well as a teacher, and I'm just super blessed and love what I do. I don't sleep very much. That's my only problem. But other than that, I'm cruising.
That's fantastic. How many instruments? I'm just curious. How many instruments do you play? We know you're a bass player, and I've heard you mention piano.
Yeah, I started on piano, which is just a great foundation, So, and I also tinkered with flute for a while. But my flute teacher was in that old conservatory in Innsbruck, up on the 3rd floor, and it had these long, winding stairs. So by the time I got up there, I was totally out of breath. I was
Like
just
to the tower.
At the time. Yeah, exactly. It was all the way on top. And so, I did flute for a while. I picked up guitar, sort of tinkering, kind of teaching myself for a while. I had a stupid little keyboard. I remember that, a little thing that would play automatic, accompaniments. And weird as that may sound, it was awful if I think back of it. But, I didn't have any influences in that kind of style that I was really craving to do, though I do still love classical music. But I wasn't having much in that. I learned a lot from that little thing. It had some automatic bass that you could program, and, so I was just playing around with that. But I have a license to, to play flute, and this doubling has sometimes helped. I mean, I don't keep up with it, but I have a fingering chart, if you will. So, and upright, I play upright as well. I don't really keep up with it, but so many times in my life, I would get a great gig if you can also play upright, and then get it out of the closet, get back on the bow, long notes, So I have to refresh myself on it, but I love playing fretless. I have a little U bass. I have 4-string, 5-string, 6-string, anything with strings on it, I'll try. I also have a washtub bass that has 2 strings on it. So.
Wow.
And a pickup. Very important. You can plug it in.
That's pretty cool, though.
It's fun, yeah. Right now it serves as our coat hanger in the front because we moved here. We still don't have all the furniture sorted.
It's practical. It's an instrument. It's That's fantastic. All right. So, we can get some of this from what you just said. I'm going to ask it all the same and see what else we can find. Who were your influences?
I was a huge Michael Manring fan. Loved Hedges, that's this whole like tapping idea, and started tinkering with that. And on the course of, discovering sort of solo bass, Michael Manring, Jeff Schmidt, Dave Grossman, these 3 are names that are intimately connected with the solo bass nights in the Bay Area. So I was heavily influenced by them, also Steve Lawson. So that's a big influence just in terms of solo bass. There are some bass players that are maybe more European known. I mean, Jonas Hellbock would be one of them, or Saturnino is a bass player who used to play with Zucchero, I believe, and he did a solo album that I absolutely love. So a Testa di Basso, I believe it's called. And back in Europe, maybe some names that are not so well known over here, but I studied with Albert Kreutzer, and I studied with Willy Langer in Vienna. And so I came to this whole bass thing quite sideways. I'm a big Paul McCartney fan. I'm a big Victor fan, of course. I think that's very well known that I consider Victor one of my big influences. Love the Flecktones. So that's some of the names. But I also love, Jamerson. I teach an ear training class right now that I've designed, like a course where we transcribe tunes as part of a practice group that meets once a week. And I'm just really, going into more nooks and crannies of certain bass players, which I have, again, because I came in so sideways, I didn't grow up with listening to Jamerson or listening to Rush or what have you. But I've been catching up. So.
That's absolutely fine. I mean, I'm
I
in this.
sometimes felt like such an odd duck because of that, because you listen to, 90% of bass players who are your influences, they will tell you Bootsy some other ones, I can't think of it, but Jack Bruce is one that many often mention, George Porter, of course. And I didn't grow up with that. I just really literally I heard those names and then I sort of backwards engineered it, And it was very interesting to me, of course, and I love it. But I came more from this eclectic kind of angle, when I heard Michael Manring play, and when I heard what you could do just with like a looper, and then I started. I also have a duo with a bassoon player. And we just do the eclectic thing all the way in, and we have classical elements, we have bass lines with one hand, and he plays bass and I play solo, and then I play chords and he plays the bass line, and I mean we just shuffle it all up, So it's a big mix and match for me.
Yeah, it works. It works. What are you woodshedding right now? What are you working on?
I'm working on a lot of stuff for my students, so they always bring me things to challenge me, and these ear training classes that I'm working on, I do a lot of transcribing all sorts of different styles. So I'm working on that. I'm also a huge Charles Bartu fan, so I'll pick out some of his lines and shed some of those. I'm a big fan of Josh Cohen's. So I look what he's working on and doing. I always have a program for my own personal practice that involves, a technique component, a reading component. I haven't done much of that lately just because I've been so busy, but that's my typical practice regimen. If I don't just, oh, what's he doing? Oh, let me check that out, but it's typically doing some technique, doing part of my pattern system, which is the book that just came out, which is just a fretboard shedding smorgasbord of, drills with improvisation and interval drills. And it's a very thought out program that is truly a road that never ends, So I'm working on that. And then I have, reading, as I said, styles. I've done some stuff in the studio lately. So, working on what I can contribute to those projects. So there's always something, and it's fun.
Hey, nice. All right. So we usually hear about the downsides of being a female in the music industry. And let's flip the script now. What do you see are the benefits?
I have had wonderful all-female projects that I've been in and am in. I've Girls Got the Blues, Jazz in Pink. I've played with a couple of times. So these projects, they seek out a female bass player, and it's fantastic when they reach out, and we just have the most wonderful vibe and fun, and love playing with them. And when I was with Cirque du Soleil, that was an all-female project. So obviously it was an asset. It's, I have to say, my experiences have been 99% super positive, as being a woman, really respected and invited in and been part of. And sometimes, it's easy if something doesn't go your way to think, it's because I'm a woman, huh? But it may or may not be. So I try not to go down that route, and I really have to say most experiences have been fantastic. There has been the odd one out, and then that sticks out big in our minds. But I have to say also my bandmates, it can be kind of fun to tour in a van, but I've always felt, they were took care of me,
Nice.
Kept an eye out for me, and it treated me mostly really well. So
Road brothers.
Yeah, exactly.
How are you handling working through the pandemic, and how has technology helped or hindered you? And do you have any tips to share?
I have been so fortunate because when the pandemic hit, I was already online, and we had just moved to LA. So I was supposed to do all this networking. And of course, I was still so busy in the Bay Area. So I constantly went up there for rehearsals, for Grammy board meetings, for all sorts of events. I was constantly in the Bay Area. And then this came, and just when I decided, okay, I really have to move to LA now for real and stop like spending my life in like in Airbnbs and on friends' couches, you know. I have a friend in the Bay Area, they have a silver bullet in their backyard, so I stayed in that a lot, you know. But at some point you got to like really go to LA. And so just as I decided that, there was the lockdown. But we were really fortunate because we were online. One thing I did was, so many teachers, I had been telling them, try the online thing, you know, just try it. I know it's not the same. I prefer being in the room with the student as well, but just try it. And over the years, they always, no, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And when COVID hit, I called them up and I was like, do it now. And, you know, you have to. So listen to me, I can help. And, you know, I put together a course where I help people what tools to use. You know, the technology is always the biggest question, but to me, the biggest really aspect of making it successful is the mental one, you know, because you need to establish trust in a different way. You don't have a handshake in person, you know, you kind of have to establish trust online. So you have to prove yourself. So there are some downsides of the online, but there are also many upsides, and you can prove yourself by putting out samples. You have a worldwide audience. I have students from Australia to Great Britain and, you know, all over the world. And it's really an opportunity to open yourself up to, you know, you find your specialty, you find what you're really, really good at, and you put that out there, and people find you because they're looking for exactly that sort of teaching method, that sort of way of teaching. And one thing that I've also started doing, so when I published my first book, Music Theory for the Bass Player, in 2016, and that became a very unexpected, huge success. So I build on that with videos that go with the book. Then I build on that with courses that go through the book. And I did that because I was getting videos, you know, some Amazon reviewers, they accused me, oh, you just used that book to get more business. Well, I'm sorry, but people kept asking me, can you do more with this? I love this. So I did, you know. So I just kept moving forward and building on it. And now we have a platform where we teach and we build community at the same time. So, you know, we do have courses that people can do on their own, but I found that for some people that doesn't work very well because you're on your own, so you could always do it tomorrow, right? So we started creating hybrid approaches, and we have one hybrid approach where you have to submit homework every week. You have to submit either a video or you have to submit a commitment of what you're going to be practicing, and you have people watching that. If you don't submit the homework, you get a little ping. You know, we have coaches that are people who were successful with the course who help the next generation. So it's just been a wonderful, really organically growing tribe, and it's just in the best sense of the word, right? And we have just had a really, really good community that approached from that. And then the other thing that I've been doing lately, because my waiting list is super long, and I can't take as many one-on-ones as I would love to. So I've started creating what I call practice groups. And with those, we meet like between 10, 20, or some groups are smaller, but between 10 and 20 is a sweet spot on Zoom every week for 10 weeks. And we have a certain topic. You know, so we have ear training, we do a lot of transcribing, and then we have you know, a group that I call the easygoing group, because some of my material is considered a little bit more on the harder side. So I'm like, easygoing, all you need to do is show up once a week. We'll do a little technique, a little bit of theory, a little bit of improv, you know, just have fun, low pressure. And then I have these pattern system groups where we go through the pattern book together. So it's a lot of different ways of using the online format to connect with the students and really keep them engaged and feeling like they can ask questions, and you're not just like this two-dimensional screen and you can hit play and pause, and that's as much as you can do, but you can really ask questions, you can play, you can show off new gear, you know, so we have fun. I have sound effects, so we have fun. Like that happens when you like make a mistake, like a specific thing you're not supposed to do in the pattern system, and we get so, in the class, you know. So yeah, we have fun. We don't take ourselves too seriously, but
Fantastic.
Yeah, I love doing these groups. I really have to say this has been like one of the funnest things, and I just really had to engineer it and come up with it, because I thought, how can I engage people more now that we can't do seminars and meet people in person? So
yeah, nice stuff. All right. So are there any current projects you can tell us about that you're working on?
You know, theoretically, I have to say theoretically, because we haven't had much gain on that project in the last couple of years, unfortunately, because of the pandemic. But we are having our second album in the works with my partner, Paul Hansen, with the duo Un. And really want to get that out because it's almost fully recorded. We just have to mix it, and just been so incredibly busy, but really hope to finish that album because there's some really nice stuff that we already have and just some finished touches that it needs. So that's a project. Then musically, I've been working. When I got to Nashville, I got called to play on a TV show, and that's been fairly regular on and off. Where, you know, the composer has it's a wonderful situation to be in as a bass player. The idea was it should be a little bit of touch Jamerson, and the score is very bass-based and everything else is samples, but the bass we do live. So whenever he can, he calls me in and I lay the bass over it, and that's really fun to do because you're watching the movie or the film while you're recording it, and you can play with the dialogue a little bit, lots of slides, you know, it's for kids. So there's some nice creative stuff you can do. I always bring my fretless and variety of basses, so it's fun.
That's fantastic. I'm looking forward to seeing that. Dream artist or band to collaborate with?
Oh wow. Gosh, I'm a big, you know, since I'm so much into tapping, I'm a big fan of Stu Hams, and him and I went to Brazil last year. So I just had last year before it felt like the COVID stop time, right before 2019. We were in Brazil together and did a tour. So that almost feels like one that the, you know, bucket list item that I wanted to do, and I really got to collaborate with Stu, which was really fun. I mean, it's so funny how I immediately think bass players. I would love to collaborate with, you know, Victor on something. I would love to collaborate with Michael on something. We've shared the stage, we've done events together, but those are cats I really admire. Kai Eckhart is another one who I've studied with and just really love his approach to bass. You know, Steve is a favorite of mine, Steve Lawson. So I gravitate to bass things. Bands that I love, you know, are in the jazz funk spectrum. I mean, I'm like thinking, I don't want to change anything about them because I love them the way they are. And one of the reasons why I love them is the bass player. You know, if I think Snarky Puppy, for example, you know, or Wolfpack or bands like that, is like, don't change a thing. Yeah, I'd love to play with them, but it's perfect as it is, you know. So, but I'd love to create some of my own projects. You know, I really had fun playing with Tempest when we did this Celtic music mixed with rock, and there's so much freedom for the bass player, you know. So I was thinking, you know, I always think, gosh, it would be so much fun to do something like that. But I've just been too busy, you know, doing my teaching and the recording sessions that have been coming up. So, and that's also so much fun, you know, like last week I recorded fretless for a very dear friend of mine in Germany. And the week before I played on a Latin project, and that's always varied. And I just love finding my way and finding my place in something that's already kind of baked and going in a certain direction, but you can put a little stamp on it, you know, just at whatever place they put you in, you know. And yeah, I was supposed to play with Girls Got the Blues last week, but because of, you know, logistics, travel was just really, really difficult. So I hope that life comes back with a vengeance and with ease, and, you know, I can find my way into that again. So
I keep asking that question of everybody because I'm crossing my fingers somebody will have it happen from watching this interview, you know.
Oh, yeah.
One of these artists I'm interviewing, I'm hoping somebody will see it and they'll get to do a dream collaboration. I don't know. I don't want to guilt anybody into it, but it'd be really cool if it happened. So here's hoping. Important cause or issue that you support?
What's important to me is health education. I'm, you know, just really had to figure out my own body for a long time, allergies, and, you know, just had to figure out how to keep myself healthy on tours, which is a challenge, you know, if you're driving through, you know, Texas and you're a vegan. So, so you know, I think a lot of diseases could be prevented with good, healthy lifestyle, and that is just something that doesn't seem to be talked about a lot. And so that's something that's dear to my heart, working out, eating well, eating healthy. That can be very different for different people, but just sort of talking about it more. I think that is very important.
What would you want to change about the music industry if you could?
I think the internet has opened up a lot of possibilities for people in terms of finding your own group, finding your own, connection to people. So a lot of things are going quite well because of that, I think. We had a little bit of a success recently with copyright law. So streaming revenue should theoretically become better for musicians because some things were really staked against us. Some of the old laws where people wouldn't get paid for radio play, I believe that got fixed. So some of those, issues were with unfair payment, I think can be remedied a little bit also by cutting out the middleman. And if you're a little bit entrepreneurially minded, then you can, build your own following. You can build your own tribe. You can pull people together. And I think that there is a lot of opportunity there. And God only knows what's going to happen with life now, Things are still kind of shaky coming back, and it's going to be interesting to see what the new live scene looks like. I mean, streaming has sort of become a thing during the pandemic, I feel, and it's been a possibility to create revenue doing that. I know a lot of people who did regular streaming events, put up a tip jar and did quite well. So I'm hopeful, we constantly have to reinvent ourselves anyway. The worst thing you can do is just try it. And I know you know that, whatever life throws you, you just got to go with it. You got to come up with an idea. You got to put your next step forward and support other people if you have a skill, And I just think there's a lot of opportunity there. And I mean, I want to mention No Treble in this aspect because, they're definitely somebody who if you have a new album out, or if you just, even if you are, what's the series called? I should know, the videos that they can send in, discovering of new player or
They have like a video series where readers can send in a video. They also have Reader Spotlight. They have like a lot of
Reader Spotlight was what I was thinking, exactly. And I mean, it's just great. You can find your own style, do your own thing, put that out there, and you can, find people that resonates with. And I think that's a wonderful opportunity. And also the other thing I always say, because I often get asked with how to make money as a musician, one thing that you can really consider is music has so much in the periphery, like sound. You can be a sound person. You can learn how to mix. You can learn how to write music for video games. You can learn how to, teach. You can learn how to, do sound archiving. I mean, there is so much that where your direct music skills can feed and inform something that is in the periphery with which you can make a nice, consistent living, because making a living from gigging is hard. That is really difficult, very difficult. And not to discourage anybody, but I'm just saying, if you like the field, if you want to be around it, you can write about it, right? You can create video series about it. You can interview other artists. You can make a podcast. There's so much in the periphery that you can do. Those are opportunities that weren't there 10 years ago. So.
Very nice. Nice answer. Mm-hmm. I'm feeling that one. So, new artist, this can be a new artist to you, meaning an artist who's established that you're just getting into, or an emerging artist. Is there a new artist that we should all know about?
Well, I mean, probably everybody here knows Charles Berthoud. He's one of my favorites right now. Josh Cohen, I also already mentioned. I mean, I sometimes listen dismally little to music because I listen to what I need to prepare for a band, or I need to, and I'm feeling like, well, Dirty Loops, that's not even new anymore, but so really don't have a good answer to that one.
No, that was fine.
And yeah.
I feel you too. I do a lot of teaching, and I've had people hit me up at like 10 at night when I'm getting off a call, and I'm listening to this, and I'm like, I'm not listening to the dang thing.
Yeah, I can relate to that. My ears are just
I
tired. I
just,
put headphones on all day,
headphones
please.
are out, and I'm going for a nice quiet walk. So there's not a right or wrong answer. And actually, I find that highly relatable, and I will say privately, without naming names of the people I know who teach. I don't want to name names because I don't want to embarrass anybody, but there are other people of stature who need those breaks too. So there's no shame in just being like, yeah, I'm just working on so much on my own stuff. You know.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Yeah, it's sometimes you just want a cat and a blanket, and that's it.
That's totally fine. I support your answer. So it's honest too, which is great. So, an early experience that shaped you as an artist now.
Hmm.
Hmm.
I was at a bass workshop, and what was it? Was it a jazz workshop? I don't remember. It's so long ago. It was a workshop somewhere in the woods in Austria, and this
Nice.
young man had a thesis to write, I believe, and the topic of his thesis was putting together a camp in the woods with music. So he was writing about that, something like that. And so there were a lot of people invited, and we all got together and practiced and played. And Jimmy Earl was at that workshop, and he was just very, very complimentary. I had barely started, and it was really just in the beginning, but he was super, super complimentary. And I have to say, if it weren't without him, a couple of months after that, he was touring in Austria, and so I came and see him. And I wasn't sure whether I should go to Miami or not. I got a scholarship offer, and I wasn't sure whether I should go. And he saw me from the stage, and he pointed at me from the crowd into the crowd, and he said, "Ariana, go to Miami." He like yelled it down from the stage. So that was one, like a highlight moment where I really decided, oh my God, maybe I really want to do this as a professional. I just, growing up in Austria and in Innsbruck, there wasn't like a lot around. There was some classical things and some operas that I saw as a kid, and I remember being always very enthralled by what's happening on stage. And I remember the first time I heard somebody play jazz, and I remember thinking, I want to learn that. So probably some, nobody known, but just somebody improvising on their sax. Actually, it was sax solo, and I was doing a gig on some tiny little cafe or something, and I just remember sitting there in awe and going, I want to be able to just play a melody and then take that melody and do something with it, and then go back into the melody. And it's this beautiful little package that followed some logic that I didn't quite understand back then, but it made sense to me that there was an underlying structure that was understandable, at least to a certain degree, right? And that's where it gets interesting. How far in is it understandable? And, then we can deconstruct it. Where does the creativity come from and all of that? But I did have a sense there's something you can do to prepare for the muse to land, like know the instrument really well and know the style really well and the idioms and how it's built and how you move within a framework, but also go around, beyond it. So I was having a vague idea of that. So I kind of remember that moment where I was like, I decided I want to understand. If there's a code, I want to understand it, at least get as close as possible. So that's, of course, a lifelong pursuit.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I remember that moment. Let's see. Oh yes. Bassists are all about the gear. There's no way I can do an interview and just ignore it because there's so many nerds out there. And you can look at my room behind me.
Exactly.
It's a contradiction if I skipped it. So, any recent game-changing acquisitions to your toolkit?
Oh, well, don't tempt me. Do not tempt me. But I mean, I would see something I'd like. But I'm such a lucky person because I play Marlowe basses and have for many, many years, and I have a lot of them: 4-string, 5-string, 6-string, concerts, Votans. I recently bought from a student of mine my concert. It's right over, not concert, contra. It's right over there. If you want me to get it, I'll get it, because that instrument is just sick looking. I'll get it.
I was going to say, you can't set it up like that and then not get it.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Here it is. This instrument is just absolutely phenomenal. So it's
Oh,
like a hybrid. It's got a half hollow body. Here, this is hollow. In here, I can put my finger in here, but the lower part is solid. So it's like inspired by upright basses, and this is just an amazing instrument. I bought it off of a student of mine who wanted a 4-string, so he sold it to me, and I just love this instrument. It sounds interestingly very, very funky. So it's got a really good thump sound, and it's just, it's got a great shape, so it can go all the way in, and so that is my favorite recent acquisition. And other than that, I try not to
like
hear acquisition syndrome, like pedals and that sort of thing. It's always dangerous, but I try not. Do not tempt me. So there we go. But people always tell me about things they got, and then of course I have to check it out and all that sort of thing. But yeah, I'm happy with lots of basses, and I also have a beautiful Fibonacci fretless. So that's the only bass I play. That's not a Marlowe. I also have a 6-string Ken Smith, but Wolfgang mostly plays that one. It's a little bit too wide for my hands. So.
Well, I will be wildly curious to see when you get a video out with that thing.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
It's a beauty. Yeah.
Heart was just a slow, like, second. All right. That was well worth it. So what advice would you have for someone wanting to, quote unquote, follow in your footsteps?
Oh gosh. I'm big on routine, whether that is my own practice or whether that's my teaching. So I want I would encourage, because so many teachers ask me, how have you done what you did? And, I always say, start small. It's the same with practicing, and I've been through in universities, like when I was at University of Miami, I knew I had 1 year because I had a limited scholarship. I was practicing day and night. I was like, first one up, last one to bed. I had a keyboard in my room. I was practicing because I loved the way they were teaching down there. And I just wanted to get as much out of it as possible. And so I literally, it was either in class practicing or sleeping, eating in the middle somewhere. But I learned a ton that year, but I also know that when you practice like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 hours a day, comes a point of diminishing returns. And so I got really interested later on in how to turn practicing time from quantity into quality. And I started experimenting with focus, and I started experimenting with really putting your attention into a very specific thing as you're practicing. And, we're all guilty of that. Like if you play a new tune or you read something down or whatever, and going great, make a mistake, right? Oh, shoot, that didn't happen. Start over. Going great. Make a mistake. Start over, right? And a lot of people practice like that. And it's really awful because you really practice the mistake. So the thing to do is, going great. Okay, problem zone. Back off half a bar. Find mark it red. Figure out what's going on. That's the other thing. We have to take the time to figure out what's going on. So backwards engineer it. Okay, that's a fingering problem. There's a difficult jump. There's a difficult string crossing on the same fret. Okay, so I'm going to isolate that, create an exercise out of it. Okay, so I'm over here for 10 minutes and I'm doing all that. But then I return and then I can fix this thing. Then I'm, back up half the bar, go into the hard spot, go back there, loop this section, loop. Okay, now I've fixed it. Now I start over and it's going great. And I keep going over the stumbling block. So I found that practicing with focus and practicing with a very, with a good plan like what I just, for example, strategy, rather like a strategy, like I just mentioned, can get you faster to the goal. Can get you to the goal much faster, right? And so I've been interested in that and encourage everybody to, have a practice log, use the method, like, permutation exercises or my pattern system. If you want to learn the fretboard, the pattern system is a method that is a practice method using mental practice, using improvisation, so it's a plan, right? You want to follow a plan. Repertoire list, some milestone tunes, what do you need to know in order to learn what is hip, for example? What are the things you need to be able to do technically, and then practice just those technically before we jump in straight away and try to do this hard tune, right? Because that often leads to, and I'm really interested in bass technique and tension and, how we can help ourselves stay healthy as we play. And so one of the things that I've noticed is we often just jump in on the deep end with these really hard tunes, and we want to get them so badly. And then when we can't, because the speed is just not there, if I just push harder, and then up come the veins start popping, and we're just going to, if I just push harder, I can do it, We need to do the opposite, we need to like relax into it, let it come to us. Play with less movement, get rid of all the extra movements. There's so much you can do and train yourself, but you have to do that away from trying to finish that tune tonight, And so those are some things that I recommend to really pay attention to how we practice, what we practice. And then if you practice like that, you can get a lot done in 20 minutes, So that's one. And also the same philosophy, if somebody here is looking to teach or teach online or write a blog or write a book or whatever, just consistently do things that give you a high payoff. Like when I started my blog, I'm going to blog every week. And somehow I managed, but it did burn me out after a while. And I observe other people, trying to do too much too soon. And you want to maybe start with one blog post a month, but do that every month. It doesn't have to be good, doesn't have to be perfect. Perfectionism is another thing that sometimes, really gets us to not achieve what we could. But you want to do just one blog post, do that, and then celebrate when you're done. I'm a tiny habits coach. So that is a method, BJ Falk, tinyhabits.com, if anybody's interested. But the most important thing, if you want to create a habit, it's not the 21 days. It's nothing like maybe a little bit. But the most important thing is that whatever it is you do needs to make you feel good. So if you want to make it a habit, you afterwards got to go, I did it, I rock, right? But usually we go, oh, I did only one blog post, I should have done 10, right? It doesn't really count because I did only one. So we beat ourselves up. The same with practicing, oh, I just practiced 20 minutes. It doesn't even count. Oh, I barely did this. I did one bar, I should have done 20. But we should do the opposite. If I did one bar, you go, yes, I did it. Good for me, and give ourselves a good feeling afterwards, because then the habit can form. So that's at least my understanding of this method, and I have used it to that effect. And so the positive feeling we give ourselves, the way we talk to ourselves, that's another big one, where we just, if we can support ourselves a little bit more like we would support another person, can be very helpful. So.
Makes sense. So speaking of routine, and this is actually an interview question that was coming up, what's an average day like for you? Do you mind sharing that?
Yeah, no. It's not always, I'll tell you my perfect day. It's not always like that though, because, and I can't sleep, then it's hard for me to get up early, but I do try to work out first thing in the morning. And, I like to lift weights, I like to stretch, I like to do some cardio, and I do that. And then I have a little house routine, taking care of cats and such. And then I jump into typically a teaching round, or I have my seminars or practice groups, or I do something related with the business, like taking care of emails, answering things, what have you. And then come around, so that's typically from 10 to 2-ish. And then I have a short lunch break. And then between 3 to 6, I want to create content. So it doesn't always happen, but that's the ideal plan, right? So between 3 to 6, I either keep working on my books or on my blog posts, or I keep working on creating practice groups. I have way more ideas than things I can put into place. So that's that dedicated time. And for a while, right now, we're not set up for that, but for a while, I actually rented a room. And this is another tip I can give to people who are looking to maybe write a book or get something out there. I rented a room in Little Vallejo where we lived. It was part of a gallery. It was a tiny little room, had no window, had nothing. I put in there a couch just so that I could put my feet up for a minute, and a small standing desk. And then I had on my walls, I had all my outlines for the book I was working on at the time. And so I would go in there 3 to 6. I'd bring a bottle of water, and my goal would be to finish that bottle. And then when it was done, I would line it up on the floor, right, to motivate myself. And so after, a couple of months of that, you'd be looking at this room was like one whole round of water bottles, and it was just so motivating for me to see, because every day I did my 3 to 6 in that room. I had to be there. I had to focus as best as I could. There was no distraction, and just, produce. It didn't have to be good. It didn't have to be perfect, but I just had to do it. And I have to say that discipline was really, really powerful. And just this 3 to 6, 3 to 6, and 3 hours is a long time to focus very well or to do any kind of writing. So if you really, if you want to start with 1 hour, that's good. But for me, the key was I had to rent this room, and it was $100 a month. It was really cheap, but it was worth it. And I highly recommend little rituals like that. The first book I wrote on writing retreats. So I had a student who had a beautiful house in the foothills, and he's like, here's the key if you want to do something. So I was very, very lucky I could get away and just be focused, go there with the intent of just writing, computer, base, nothing else, no internet. And those kind of things have been very helpful. I forgot what your question was, Brittany. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that was that's okay. That was some great tips right there. I was feeling you channel James Pressfield, War of Art.
Oh,
Almost.
yeah, I love that book. Yeah, I love that book.
The question was, what's an average day like for you?
Oh, yeah, right. And then after 3 to 6, so that's then typically where my own practice time starts. So take a little break, and then I'll, go through my, I call them, I have funny little letters for my, but Tau is for my technique, and then Pi is for my pattern system, and then I had Greek at school, I use Greek letters, but I have a reading of, 25 minutes. So it's 25 minutes, 5 minutes break, 25 minutes, 5 minute break. And then sometimes I'll just get together with Wolf and we'll jam on something or work on something together and write out the evening. So that's the ideal day. And again, I don't always get to everything. There's emails and fires to put out, or, deliveries that don't make it. So I'm hunting tracking numbers for books that didn't get there, and all sorts of things can happen. But yeah, that's the ideal. That's the plan.
Pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome. All right. After we've done your perfect day, what drew you to the music industry?
To the music industry. I'm not sure if anything ever drew me to the industry. It sounds so negative. I don't know. But I was just inspired by, another person I absolutely need to mention in terms of inspiration is Gerald Weasley. When you asked me earlier, like key moments, I was at a workshop in Austria again where Gerald Weasley was there, and a long time ago. And it's just the way he was talking about music and creativity and the responsibility of a bass player and the so hard to describe spiritual aspects of music. I just remember that long talk he gave. I got a parking ticket. I was sitting there thinking, I'm going to get towed. And I was thinking that it's going to be worth it. I just want to leave right now.
Yeah, Gerald he has a way. And I know what you're talking about, that when he's got a certain thing and he's talking about it, it's a spell almost.
Absolutely. 100%. He was putting words to something that I just couldn't. I knew it existed, but I couldn't put my finger on it. And to have him put a finger on it in front of you, and then say there's maybe a path to it, You know, I'm like, oh God, okay, I'm like, to my car. I don't want to miss anything here. So that was a key moment. And so these things drew me to music, you know, and I don't think anything ever drew me to the industry itself, though I've been steeped in it and, you know, fought for it as a Recording Academy member and on the board, and, you know, really involved with, you know, changing legislature and that sort of thing and advocating for musicians. But I think I'm drawn to the art form. I'm drawn to helping other people be on that path. And I'm really drawn to building things. I love creating things. So for a while, I had a physical music school in Vallejo. And, you know, we had 2 floors. I had yellow walls. Everything was like super fun. We did lots of camps for the kids, and we had you know, rock camps and kids for music for little kids, and, you know, lots of different teachers, and so I love creating things, you know. So how can I, you know, can I make this happen, you know? And I remember how nervous I was when I started, but somehow pulled it through, and a lot of people in town just loved the idea of what I was trying to do. Vallejo has a pretty challenged downtown, shall we say, and I had these beautiful signs, orange and green, and everywhere instruments, and I had signs, "Do touch." I went to a pawn shop and bought everything I could sort of afford, and, you know, keyboards and banged up drums and basses and guitars and what have you. And I had these big signs, "Do touch," you know, so don't hurt yourself, but do touch. That's what it's there for. And we did all these camps where kids could kind of try out what instrument they were drawn to, because we got a lot of parents who were like, well, she says she wants to learn guitar, but maybe I'm going to buy the amp and the guitar and the cable and the book, and you know, she's going to quit on me. And so I was like, okay, give them to me for a week, and I can tell you whether it's guitar, keyboards, maybe nothing, you know. You can see where these little people are drawn to, you know, like behind the keyboard or behind the microphone or big show off, or, you know, you could kind of tell which personality was going to be drawn to a certain instrument. So we had a lot of fun with that.
That's awesome. What is your favorite part about this line of work, and what is your least favorite part?
My favorite part is by far all the people from all over the world that I get to connect with. So whether it's other players who contact me or whether it's people who want to learn. And my favorite part about that is also to sort of try to understand how people tick, how their creativity comes out, you know, how they overcome their apprehension, their fear of creating and showing themselves creatively. And so that is something I'm super drawn to. The financial aspects are sometimes hard. I mean, I have had times in my life where I had very odd jobs. I was working as a security guard at an airport. I was working as a cab driver. You know, did engraving for a while, where you put music into a finale, essentially from a manuscript. So the financial bits of it are hard, and can be hard, you know. And just kind of this hustle. You move to LA, you try to feel like, oh my gosh, you know, I have all these things in the Bay Area. Is this a good move? You know, so you can drive yourself crazy. Luckily, we have been so blessed with this online venture and the books and you know, recordings that I do. So this has been, the last few years have been we've been really doing very well. It's just, you know, there is an aspect, you're responsible for, you know, your bills, and you want to be you know, taking care of yourself. So sometimes that has been hard in my life, and you know, that's also the reason, I guess, why sometimes people discourage you and they go, oh, maybe you shouldn't do that, go back to science, you know, and make money and that sort of thing. But I've always been not the stubborn kind, so but you know, if you have an entrepreneurial bone in your body, you know how to show up, you know how to do your put your best foot forward, how to, you know, come through, do as you say, you know, don't make any empty promises, but you do what you say, you follow through, and you give some extra, you know, maybe. Then, you know, whether that's being part of a band or building a teaching business or whatever it is, you're going to be noticed, you know, because I don't think it's the norm. I mean, I've worked with a lot of people, and you see why people who are successful, and you see why people who aren't often aren't. And we have more power over our fate than we may think.
Great last line there.
Yeah, asking great questions, Brittany.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I want.
Give me think.
That's a strong suit. All right. Let's see. Let's have you plug yourself. Where can we find you, Miss Ariane Cap, on the interwebs? Give us where we can find you.
Well, I am very proud to be a contributor on No Treble. So if you are going to notreble.com and look in the lesson section, there is a talking technique going about 70 episodes strong and counting. So it's a series on technique that I have done, and just really, really grateful for No Treble to allowing me to put all that out there. It's really about bass technique, and sometimes we dig songs and we learn the songs and see what we can learn from the challenge that the song presents. So there's 70 episodes there, and then I'm at arispacblog.com. That's my main hub as the bass blog, as the name implies, but also where courses live, and a lot of background material can be found on the books. This page is being redone right now, so it's a bit outdated at the moment, but that's the URL, and my courses are there. And if you are interested in the books, they are available on Amazon, whichever country. And if you are in a country that does not have Amazon, then you can get the books with worldwide free shipping at bookdepository.com.
Nice. Nice. Okay. Any final thoughts for us, Ari? Anything you'd like to say? Free. The floor is open.
Free floor is open. Gosh, it's been such a challenging year for so many, I know, and I just hope that everybody's doing okay. I have loved having No Treble as some sort of refuge. It's always when I go on there, I feel like I'm part of a family and part of a group of like-minded people who are combined by this passion for bass. And in this current climate, it's often hard to find common ground, I find. And bass is a very benign and very healing and very music in general, is a very, very healing thing that connects us. And there's just something about bass players. I don't know what it is, but they're so, it's a cliche, of course, but I found this for the most part to be really true, just really giving and community oriented. And so everybody take very good care of yourselves and stay healthy, everybody, and keep it groovy.
Nice. Ari, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Brittany.
Awesome. You truly are.
Going down all sorts of paths there.
It was wonderful. Thanks for letting me have you as a guest on Wonder Women, stories from the women who play bass. Take care.
Take care. Thanks for having me.